All right, everybody, welcome back to the Lightning Redemption Project. It has been a while. Been waiting on some parts to get some things specified. It was a little difficult to source what I needed to move forward with the analog brakes and more specifically the airbag. I have sourced what I needed to get this project going. These two are basically the main components I need to get the wiring set, ready to go, get all the stuff lined out. Without these, I can't really move forward where I really want to, because I want to do this in a proper order so that I'm not having to do any kind of back and forth. In the meantime, I did get the Lightning brake booster installed. The Lightning one is much bigger than the stock one, so it's definitely necessary to have that installed. And then once you have that installed, the necessary rest of the hydraulics need to be swapped over, including the analog brakes, which is one of the two most favorite parts of this build for me, because I'm doing something that was basically said it cannot be done. And tonight we're going to be working on my most favorite part, which is the airbag setup. So we're going to go inside and I'm going to show you that setup. All right, so now here I got you guys inside the truck. And what we have here is a floor panel cutout. And this was what a little bit difficult to source. I first tried to just get some people that were scrapping out trucks. You know, they were already going to take them to the scrapyard after they're done stripping them. And nobody seemed to understand what I was after when I was contacting them. I asked for things like transmission tunnel, things like that. And everybody's like, I just don't understand what you're after. So after some sourcing, thank you, Dad, who also works in the body shop industry, he was able to talk to the salvage yard guys. And after some discussion, they figured out that what I was after is this bracket right here. And so they were able to cut out a section of a truck that had it and get that to me, so I can, number one, take measurements of where this part needs to be perfectly placed. But if we look, you can see where this one is, and this floor does not have it. And that's because this truck is a 97. The donor was a 2000. And then from 99 up, Ford placed their modules basically right there. And that's what they did, is they integrated the crash detection crash sensor, basically integrated it into this module all in one instead of having separate crash sensors. And so they needed it basically central to the truck to be able to detect any kind of hit from any kind of direction. So it needs to be located correctly, and it needs the bracket right here because the HVAC sits right on top of it. So it sits in here like so. And if you look, it locates and sits just like so. And the reason it's like that is so you can slide it in and out with minimal disassembly in the event that an airbag goes off and you need to resurface it. When an airbag goes off, this module is no longer good because it is deployed in airbag. And so then it's not. But this one is supposedly, it's used, but it's supposedly never been in deployment. So it should still be good. And I should technically be able to program it to the truck. So what we're going to do is, if you look, I've already taken some measurements. Marked this bracket right here, lined it up with this crease right here, and then I took some measurements. It was 1 3/8 inches based off of this body line. I made that mark over here on this part of the transmission tunnel, and so then this bracket can line up either way, and then it should be placed where it needs to. So the next step I'm going to have to do is drill out these 6 spot welds we have right here. Once I drill these out, I can lift this bracket up off of here, place it on the floorboard there, and then I can weld it. And then once I get that welded in place, I will have it set up to where this module can then be bolted in. And then we'll be real close to getting the interior ready to replace the dash. So I got to get some stuff prepped. I got to get that black part off the firewall there. It's also a fire hazard. I need to get that pulled back, get the welder set up, and get some stuff prepped, and then we'll be back and I'll show you the process of removing this bracket and transferring it and welding it. I'm going to show you the finishing process of drilling this stuff out. My spot weld drill bit got a bit dull, so I had to switch to some old school methods here and slowly start with a small hole and work myself up to a bigger hole. Alright, so I've drilled out the 3/8, which is typically the size of a spot weld. Step it up till just a little bit bigger, and then we're going to try to pry this bracket off here. Alright, let me go get something to pry with. Ouch. It's pretty close. Pretty close. There we go. Basically, the very edges are probably still locked in just a little bit. What we're doing is pulling them away, separating a gap in between the two, and they're popped right there. Just the very edge of the spot weld is holding on. Alright, so here we have this bracket. I'm going to have to straighten it just a pinch, which I'll go do. But essentially, so now, if we look, essentially, now that I have the bracket that I want, I'll have to do some trimming of the insulation there. But I have a line, this black line was marked where the front edge of that should be. Across the line there is where that is. So now I can trim everything up. And then what I'll be able to do is prep, clean off all the paint where these welds are going to go. Do the same here on the bottom side. And then once I do that, I can then prep it to get everything ready to weld this bracket to the floorboard of this truck. And then once we get that done, we will have a bracket that is then ready for our airbag module. Alright, so I've got the welder set up. Use the donor piece to test my weld settings here. Got the welder all fished through. Got this piece lined up. I also had to make some slight hammering right here to relief cut or bend the tunnel down just a little bit, because it humped up in the back because this floor was not designed to have a module here. The newer ones are flattened out just a little bit more for this to sit flush. So I hammered this down to bring the sheet metal down to flatten it out, so this is going to sit the correct direction that it needs to, because again, I need it to be exactly like the other one is. So get my cable here. There we go. Now I can do my welding. There's one. Let's remember one more thing. All right, 3 down and 3 to go. go. Woo! So we'll just get up a little bit close here. You can see up close what we did, or what I did. Plug welded those holes. That's what it's called, where you weld from the middle. Filled it up. Now this bracket is positioned where we need it to. My alignment there is lined up. I had my depth set where it needed to be. I'll let that cool down, and then I will test fit my module. All right, so what we're gonna do before I call it quits tonight is analog brake module mounts right where I have it illuminated. Sourced this bracket on the good old eBay here, and it actually came from another Lightning. Some guy, I suspect, stripped a bunch of stuff off his Lightning and made it a drag truck, because he said he took this off at about 11,000 miles. So it still looks in great shape. Came with some of the hardware. I got some hardware for the frame rail there, and so what we're going to do is just going to mount this up, and then we will be able to mount up the anti-lock brake module and call it quits for the night. All right, well, I won't be able to permanently mount this because I need to take these lines off of it, but in the interest of seeing what it looks like, we're going to rest the brake control module where it's supposed to go. The only thing I'm sad about is the company that did the hole on it. They could have saved these brake lines right here instead of cutting them out. Nice braided setup. They could have just undid them, but probably in the interest of time, they did the old cuts. So that right there is where this brake controller is supposed to sit. We're going to plug in right here. I have new stainless steel hydraulic brake lines for the whole truck. We'll plumb those in on one of the next dates. We'll get that set up. So once we get the hydraulic brake lines in and I finish up the mounting for the anti-lock brakes, there's one more thing I have to do with the HVAC. Once I get those two things done, we have all the biggest hurdles will be accomplished, but we're already pretty far there. All right, so funny story. Since I filmed my outro last night late, I had a lapse of judgment and it had a really bad poor angle, and you couldn't see from here on up of how I was recording. So, you know, a lot more sleep. I can think properly here. But anyway, as you can see here, module is in there. I have it slid into the bracket. Test fits great. Looks exactly how I would want it to sit. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. Only thing left I have to do is pull this module out here, clean this up a little bit, get that painted, so it's all sealed up. We don't have any kind of rust or corrosion or anything like that happening. But if you see here, slides in how it should, fits great, which is what I wanted. I didn't get the bracket warped or anything like that. So module's good to go. Next steps that we got to work on: hydraulic brake lines for the anti-lock brake control module, so we can get the four-wheel anti-lock brake plumbed in and ready to go. There'll be some miscellaneous stuff I need to do to make the ABS complete and functioning the way it does. And then the last thing I need to do before I can get this dash starting to go back in is I got to take the HVAC that goes right here, the box that I went through, and there's a duct that fits right over top of this, and I'm going to have to modify it to get it to fit around here. The later models that use this, they actually had a separate ducting style that actually had a molded relief for this module, and I know what it looks like. I can see what it looks like. Trying to source it, the only way I'm probably going to be able to do it is by going to like a pick and pull, or going to somebody that is scrapping one out and pulling it myself. I've done some checking around and things like that, and sometimes people just don't understand what you're after when you're doing a project like this. And so as small and insignificant as the part is, it's probably just, I'm going to have better time spent just modifying the existing duct, because it's not a super significant piece, than it would be for me spending a bunch of time just trying to source it. It's just not worth my time. It's going to come out fine. It's going to work the way it needs to do. You're not even going to see it, because once this dash is on, it's got a cover that goes all the way around here to trim it out. So even if it doesn't look 100% the best, as long as it functions, it'll be everything it needs to be. So overall, the progress, super excited. Again, this was probably my most favorite aspect of what I am doing to this truck, because again, the reason the truck got left in a basket case and it was abandoned from the previous shop is they found out that the airbag setup was completely different. They just decided that it was in their best interest to quit. They didn't want to deal with it, things like that. And so that's what it is. I'm over here. I told you in the beginning of this process, I don't quit. I don't let cars beat me, basically. I'm going to come out victorious on this. And this was one very, very big hurdle that I'm very excited to have basically accomplished here. So once we get the HVAC squared around and I get the hydraulic brake lines set up, we're going to get the dash and stuff back in. And then the next step I will do after I get these next few steps done and I can get this dash back in is I'm going to get the wiring all hooked up, everything together. And before I do any reassembly anywhere else on the truck, I'm actually going to test the electrical system. We're going to have all the wiring completely hooked up. I'm going to get this module programmed to the VIN specific Lightning drivetrain that it was pulled out of, so that everything basically thinks that it's still in a 2000 Lightning. And then I'm going to test all the system, make sure all the modules work, make sure all my electrical stuff's functioning. So then that way, if I know it's all functioning, everything is what it needs to be, then I can move confident forward that I just need to do some basic mechanical assembly. You know, get the engine put back together, get the transmission mounted up. I'll have the rear end and drive shaft, bleed the brakes, and then just kind of move forward from there with just some basic mechanical skills, which should make the rest of it much easier once I get this electrical stuff lined up. So with that said, if you're enjoying the videos, you like to keep following along, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and then if you want to know when I post the next installment of this, make sure you click the bell there so your phone will alert you of that. So everybody, just thanks for watching.